So hello everyone, this is Drax and today I am going to teach you the secondary storage. And before starting the lesson, I want to just say something. The thing is that this is the first time I am recording something and trying to teach others, so I don't know that how I'll be able to explain. Will the audience will be able to understand it properly, or how they are going to see this? Okay, but I think this is a small try from my side. I want to test that whether, so if I know something, if that knowledge can I able to transfer to other person. So that's the main aim in which I am making this video. So I'll be trying my level best, and maybe in the middle way sometimes I may stuck. Maybe I think as I told that this is the first time I am teaching, so I may not be that fluent in teaching, so sometimes I may get stuck while speaking. So I hope that you all should understand that part, and please ignore that part and try to understand that what I am trying to convey. Okay, so today I am going to be talking about secondary storage, means about the hard disks. Although nowadays the hard disks have been replaced by SSDs, but still in older days this hard disks was widely used, and even nowadays also many people still use hard disks because SSDs come with a higher cost. Okay, so in my upcoming lessons I'll be taking the topic SSD also, but for today under the secondary storage I'll be talking about the HDD, that is the hard disks. Okay, so about the internal working of a hard disk I'm going to talk about. Okay, so that how internally the hard disk has been designed and how the data is stored. Okay, so that thing I'm going to explain via this lesson. Okay, so if we just open the hard disk, okay, so the picture that you can see on the right hand side is a typical hard disk that used to be present in older days desktop PC. And maybe if you have a laptop that has a hard disk, that design might be slightly different from this, but the mechanism will be same that I am going to talk about. So this is basically a desktop PC, maybe in the not so older, it is not that old actually. Nowadays also many desktop PCs still use such kind of hard disks. Okay, so if you are a college student or if you are in school and you can see the desktops present in a school or colleges, that might be still using this hard disks also. Okay, so in this hard disk, if we see this design, so basically the hard disk is a stack of disks. I think you all have seen at some point of your life the compact discs or the optical CD or DVD that I think you all have used at some point of time in your life. So but those discs and these discs are completely different, because those discs are basically optical discs. So that means the light are used in order to store the data, but this kind of discs are your magnetic discs. Okay, and magnetic grains are used in order to store the bits. Okay, as you know that in any kind of computer system the data is stored in the form of 0 and 1. Okay, so how those bits are stored in this platter, so in this kind of disks that I'm going to talk about. So in technical term, this stack up, so these are basically stack up disks, and these disks are known as platters. Okay, so these are, and they these kind of platters used rotate with a high RPM, it rotate very fast, and in these platters only the bits are stored. And one more difference, that apart from magnetic and optical, one more difference that is found out from the optical discs to this kind of disk is that in this disk we store the data on the both end, that is from the top surface and bottom surface also, but in case of optical disc only the top surface means is being used. Okay, so basically the hard disk is composed of your electromagnetic components, that is rotating platters are there. So these platters rotate with a high angular velocity. Okay, and the data are being fetched via that. Okay, and so you can see that there is a magnetic head. So this magnetic head is used to transfer the data from disk to the RAM, that is the primary memory. Okay, and this is the spindle, that means the middle point or the center. Okay, and fine. So we can see that there is a accumulator arm assembly. So this about the accumulator arm that is used to transfer the data from this disk to the physical to the primary memory, that is RAM. Okay, and so this is the overall design, and as I told, so yeah, so let's go to the next part. So as I told you that these are the platters, and you can see that these platters are composed of this kind of tracks. Okay, so you can see this kind of small concentric circle you can see. So if we take so this one is known as a track. Okay, and these tracks are further divided. You can see the division. So these tracks are further divided. So each division is known as a sector, and in those sectors the data are stored. And you can see that this is the ARM assembly, and these are the read write heads. Okay, so means these are the main controller from where the data is accessed from the platters. So this ARM can move towards the center and away from the center. So in this way they can pass through multiple tracks, and it also rotates. So let's say, suppose for example, let's say here is a track. Let's say this is a track basically. Means it is a kind of a concentric circle which is okay, and let's say this is a sector. So I'm since I don't have a iPad, so my drawings will not be that good, so please cooperate with that. Okay, so let's say this is a simple track. Okay, I mean if I change the color to this, is it looking good? Okay, so let's say this is a small sector within this yellow track. Okay, so if I want to access a data that is present in particular sector, okay, then what will happen? Now at first this ARM assembly will move to the means away from the center, will come to the appropriate track, then this will rotate like this, and this sector will come just below, and when it will rotate, this sector will come just below this ARM assembly, and the data will get transferred to the primary memory or the RAM. Okay, so you can see that the hard disk is composed of one or more spinning magnetic platters used to store data, and a movable read and write head floats just above the surface of each platter, accessing the data while the disk spin, and the data is organized in the concentric circles on the disk surface known as tracks. Each track is further divided into smaller units called sectors, and typically a sector might store around 512 bytes of data, although this size is not fixed. It depends on hard disk to hard disk. Okay, but on a typical let's say on a typical in a typical kind of hard disk, the size is around 512, and in modern drives it can support 4 KB sectors also. Okay, and multiple platters have double-sided surface, as I told that in this top surface also and this bottom surface also. In both surface the data are stored. That's why you can see that means there are two a read and write head per platter. Okay, and multiple platters have double-sided surface that allow very high storage density. So I hope that the overall design of a hard disk is pretty much clear. So now coming to the design aspect. So actually this depends hard disk to hard disk. Actually it is not fixed, so I will not go in depth, but let's say typically the platter size means the diameter is around this length, and the rotating speed can vary within this range, and with a minor variation will definitely be there since it is a mechanical device, so there will be obviously an error. So if a hard disk designer say that my hard disk work at 10,000 rpm, some kind of 0.5 or 1% error will be there, and number of platters are usually between 1 to 5. And about the power consumption, you can see that the power consumption is directly proportional to the number of platters, the rpm power 2.8 and the diameter power 4.6, and basically this formula has been derived via the experiments by increasing the rpm, how much the power is changing. So by seeing that kind of ratio, this formula came. Okay, yeah, and read and write it, as I told that this is the simple read and write head about this part actually basically. Okay, so this tiny electromagnetic component is positioned above the platter surface and reads the magnetic field and writes the data by altering them. So how the data is stored, that we'll be seeing in the upcoming slides. Okay, so now coming here, so I think this part I have already explained, like these are the tracks. So you can see that these are the tracks, basically this is a particular track, and this track is divided into multiple sectors, you can see here. Okay, and you can see that there is a gap between, let's say between two sectors there is a gap, and that is known as inter-sector gap, and between two tracks also there is a gap, that is this portion. So this is known as inter-track gap. So there is some gaps are maintained for mainly these are the designing implementations that we'll be seeing. Okay, so now coming now what is cylinder. So actually I'll be not being going through this entire paragraph. I request you to pause the video and read whatever written. So I will just say that what exactly is happening. So you can say what is cylinder. Okay, so basically cylinder is you can say that these are the group of tracks. Okay, so let's say if I just remove this annotation and all. So let's see, so this particular track, so this is a particular track, this is a particular track, this is a particular track. Okay, so if I stack all those tracks, so it form a cylinder. You can see that this cylinder has been drawn. Okay, so this is known as the cylinder. And so what is basically cylinder? So if I trying to formally define what is a cylinder, so cylinder is a collection of tracks that are present one below the other. Okay, so in the same level, means at the equal distance from the center, the collection of tracks are known as a cylinder. And at a particular time, let's say when the disks are rotating, so all disks rotate at the same time, right? So this read and write head can access the data on this track parallelly. So within a cylinder, all the data, means all the tracks can transfer the data within a cylinder at a particular time, because at a particular time this read and write head will stay at a particular distance from the center, and within that all the data between, so let's say this is a cylinder, so at this point of time, so the data that will be transferred are basically from this track, this track and this track, and all the subsequent platters also. So this is the main design aspect, and this is the cylinder of the hard drive that I already said. Now basically the logical block addressing in disk drive. So this disk drive are organized as a large one-dimensional array of logical blocks, with the logical block being the smallest unit of data transfer. Okay, So as I already said that this this logical block. So what is a logical block? This logical block can be a sector or a group of sector. Let's say two sector form a logical block. So what the CPU does? So the CPU sees the hard disk as an array of logical blocks, that is a array of large one dimensional array of logical block. That is, sorry, I already said this one. So the low level formatting decide this logical block in a physical media. So coming to the formatting, so there are basically two kind of formatting, that is one is low level and one is high level. So means these things will be seeing later. So in low level formatting decides that how this logical blocks on a physical media, that how many sectors will form one block. So those kind of aspects are defined in this logic, in this low level formatting. And similarly there is a high level formatting that refers to the partition of the disk that will be seeing later. Okay, so like you can see that this logical block 0 corresponding to the first sector of the first track of the outermost cylinder. So in this way you can see that block 0, block 1, block 2. In this way you can define an array of logical blocks within a disk. Okay, so this is a basically example of a disk. Let's say disk has 100 cylinder, and basically it is basically example of disk. So I think nothing important as such in this page. So now coming to the important part, that how the data is stored in the tracks or in the sectors. Okay, so we have already seen that a sector might be, means the size of the sector can be from 512 bytes to 4 KB. So in this part, okay, so basically let's say a typical sector stores 512 byte of data. So that means 512 into 8, that is 124 bits of data, that is 124 number of ones and zeros are stored in a single sector. Okay, so now basically we'll be zooming, we'll be magnifying a particular sector. Okay, so you can see that this one, so let's say this is a magnified version of a sector. Okay, so in this way let's say this is one sector, the next sector will be coming like this, and the previous sector is coming like this, and all this sector will come up and it will form a circular structure, and it will land a particular track, it will form a particular track. Okay, so in this way, so basically we are zooming out on a particular sector. So how the bits are represented. Okay, so you can see that this magnetic grains or the magnetic dipole that are present, their alignment means helps us to say that is it stored 1 or 0. So you can see that how the 1 is stored. So if this the direction of the magnetic dipoles or the magnetic poles are opposite, so you can see that these grains are in this direction and these grains are in this direction. So it is a opposite kind of a thing. So if these are opposite, then it means a logical 1, and if these are of same direction, then it is a logical 0. Right. So in this way the data is stored. So suppose I want to change this 0 to 1, I want to write this data. So what I will do, I will apply a magnetic field and I will change the polarity of this particular portion. So then this 0 will become 1. So in this way the data is read or written in the disk. So let's say, so the example is there in the next slide. So you can see that so basically this is a particular track. Okay, so I mean, sorry, not a track, I mean is a portion of track, that is it is a sector, or you can track, you can say. So you could say that see this kind of arrows. Okay, so one is gray and one is blue. So this gray, let's say this gray represent this one and this blue represent, let's say, this one. Okay, so see how the data is stored. So just see this part, means just focus on this middle part. Okay, not the top and the bottom. So this part I'm not talking about. So let's say here the polarity is different, right? So that means it is a logical 1. Let's say for this the polarity has not been changed, that is same. So it is a 0. Now this is a 1, because this is a different, and this is also 1, but this is 0 because this is same, this is different. So in this way the zeros and ones are represented, means in this way the bits are stored in a typical magnetic hard disk. Okay, and yeah, so this is the way in which the data has been stored. So now coming to the some technical terms. Okay, so basically what is the storage density? It determines both the capacity and performance of a storage device. uh, yeah, this is the density. About the linear density, if I talk about, so it is defined as the number of bits per inch along a track. Okay, so in per inch, how many sectors are there? Okay, I mean, sorry, it is not about sectors, it is about bit. Okay, so in 1 inch of a track, so let's say this is 1 inch. So let's say in 1 inch of a track, the number of bits that are stored, so that's basically your linear density. And about this tracks, the number of tracks per inch across the disk surface. Okay, so for the linear density, the length has been taken along a track, but for this track density I'll take this, that is towards the diameter, or maybe like this. Okay, so in 1 inch, so let's say this is 1 inch, so in 1 inch how many tracks are means passing. Okay, so this defines your track density, that is number of track per inch across the disk surface. Now coming to the areal density, so this is the product of linear density. So this is your linear density, and this is your areal density. I'm sorry, but this is the track density and this is the linear density. So the product of these two, that is bit per inch and track per inch. So if you multiply these two, that means this area is your areal density. I hope you get it. This is about the storage density. About this hard disk bit density, you can see that I think if you know about some kind of rotational motion, let's say it is moving at a particular angular velocity, let's say omega. So if we talk about, so let's say it is rotating with the angular velocity of omega. Okay, so if we go away from the disks, the linear velocity in this part will be higher. Okay, so this, let's say this sector is moving with a velocity of v, let's say v1, and let's say this inner sector is moving with a velocity of v2. Okay, so you can see that that sector which is present means towards the outside, it has a higher linear velocity, that is v1 is greater than v2. Okay, so this bit density means you can I mean you can represent in both things, that is about constant linear velocity and constant angular velocity. So there are two parameters by which you can represent the bit density. So you can see that the sector which is near the center is small, but the sectors which are near to the outer surface, these are quite large. Okay, so you can say that but all sectors are of same length. So let's say if this small sector stores 10 bit of data, this sector also stores 10 bit of data. So you can say that maybe this sector is not fully utilized. So in order to avoid that, we can see that we can further divide the outer sectors so that all sectors become almost equal sized. Okay, means all sector becomes almost same, means almost similar area. Okay, so for that we can also further divide, but these are your basically design aspects or the implementation details that we won't see. Okay, so about the disk's access time, now as I already said in the first slide, if you remember, if I want to, let's say, access a particular sector, so how will I access? Now at first my read and write head should go at this location. Okay, and then the disks should rotate so that this part comes just below this. Okay, so in order to access a particular sector, we need to do two things. The first is we need to reach at the track, and that is known as your seek time. So what is seek time? Now the time taken by the read and write head to reach the particular track, that is known as seek time. And about the rotational delay, that the time it took to rotate so that that particular sector come under the read and write head, so that is your rotational delay. So and after that the time is taken to transfer the data from that particular sector to the primary memory or RAM. Okay, so what is the disk access time? So the disk access time comprised of three main components, as I said, that is the seek time, the rotational latency, and the transfer time. So So these three I have already explained. Okay, sorry. So yeah, so I am not going to read this. Basically the same thing has been talking about. Now the components of the SIG operation. So let's say my current read and write head is here, and let's say I want to read a sector which is located here. Okay, so how I will go? So at first I will speed up. So this movable arm should come and should reach here. Okay, so how this thing will happen? So at first it will speed up, then it will so at first it will accelerate to a certain velocity, then it will go to means so after a time it will reach its maximum velocity, then it will move a particular distance with that maximum velocity, and then it will slow down and it will come to this position. Okay, so let's say that initially the read and write was here, so it initially got speed up, reach a maximum velocity, and then got slowed and finally reached here. Okay, so these are basically the three components. That is, at first the arm will accelerate, then the arm moves at its maximum velocity, then it will slow down and it will settle at that particular position at the desired track. So this is the seek time. That means about the movement of read and write head, that is this part is known as the seek time. Now as I already said that this you can I think easily understand that whatever I have said. So let's say if that seek time is very small. Okay, so let's say I am currently here and I want to reach here, so I think about near. So here you can see this very short seek, like you have to cross only 2 to 4 cylinder. So these are very short seek. Now for short seeks it will be around, let's say 100 to 200 cylinder, and very long it's let's say 200 cylinder. So you can see that this is a particular disk. Okay, so it is my currently my read and write head is here, and let's say it is a very short seek. That means just I need to go slide. So this is a very short seek, and let's say it is a short seek can be like this, and a long seek can be, let's say initially it is here, now it came to here, so it is considered as a long seek. And this track density is very high. Okay, so let's say in an inch there are means many tracks. Okay, so that's why. So it is not like that ki this is one single track and this track is of this much length. So by seeing this diagram you will say that this disk will have 5 to 6 tracks, but this is not true. There are many tracks. Okay, so this means in a real hard disk there are many tracks, there are huge number of tracks, but exactly how many, that I am not sure, but that I think you can check in the internet. But there are huge number of tracks that are there. Okay, so this is about the seek time. And as I said that for every means you can see this graph. So if it is short seek, then it will never reach its maximum velocity, it will just increase and then decrease, and it will settle at a particular sector. And if it is very short, then it will happen like this. So you can see that this is the velocity and this is the time, and for very short it will reach to the maximum velocity will reach, then it will come down and slow down and settle at a particular sector. Okay, and for this, and if the seek distance is very high, so it will accelerate first, then it will reach the maximum velocity, will move at some distance with that maximum velocity, then slow down, and then will reach at that particular sector. So this graph shows that thing. So the disk formatting that I was talking initially, so there are two kind of disk formatting, that is low level formatting and high level formatting. Okay, so this low level formatting has been done, means is done actually by the manufacturer. So so basically we can't do this low level formatting because this is done by the manufacturer. We can do rather this high level formatting, that is you can see that. So we'll see in the upcoming slide. So about the low level formatting, so this is basically your physical formatting. Okay, and this is actually user, so basically it is not typically user configurable, it comes from the factory. Okay, so what is low level formatting? So means that how the sectors are organized, that in that I was talking about, the track density and the bit density. So those kind of factors come under your low level formatting. And yeah, about the high level formatting, so this is known as the logical formatting. That means how you format, that is how your operating system sees the disk. Okay, so here so in high level formatting you can also think about the file system that you, so basically I think you all have at least some point in your life you have formatted, let's say, pen drive or a hard disk or something like that. So when you try to format, so you see that multiple things, like if you want to format a particular pen drive, so you will see that there are options like file system, so in which file system you want to format. So you can see something option like NTFS or ext4. So this NTFS you see on your Windows kind of PC, and for Linux distribution if you see this ext4. And there is also one more like FAT34 is also one of the very popular file system. So means how so in high level formatting, so this logical formatting is involved, so nothing physical. So you can always do high level formatting if you want to means store a file in a particular disk. Okay, so it involves the file system structure, that is the master boot record. So what is master boot record and all, so I think I don't know you know or not. So the master boot record is that, let's say you have a particular disk. Okay, so this is your hard disk, that is your HDD. Okay, so this is your hard disk and there are multiple platters are there one after the other. Okay, so let's say you want to, let's say, boot your PC, that means you start the PC, and let's say your OS is also stored at a particular track and at a particular sector, or maybe a block of sector your OS is stored. So in order to start the PC, that OS must be loaded into the main memory, then only you can see the operating system on your monitor. Okay, so where is this operating system loaded? That is stored in the master boot record. So it is initially the most the topmost or the outermost or the first sector or the first track, that address where the operating system code is located. Okay, so this position where the address of the operating system is stored, so this is known as your master boot record. So from here we get the address of the location of the operating system, and accordingly then this operating system is loaded in the main memory and the system boots, and you see the operating system in your computer system. Okay, so fine. So I think typically done when installing and reinstalling your OS. So if you want to, let's say you are using a Windows in your laptop, okay, but you think that no, I want to use Ubuntu from tomorrow onwards, so you will try to install a new operating system. So for that you will format your hard drive and you will install a new operating system. So on those kind of time you can use this high level formatting. And also, let's say you have a pen drive, you want to erase all the data, you want to start afresh, so that time also you can do this high level formatting and all. Right. So about the bad sector in disk management, so since it is a electromagnetic device, so let's say this sectors basically stores your magnetic grains. So let's say after certain number of read and write or by any kind of physical damage, so certain sector may become your unusable. Okay, so those sectors are known as bad sectors. So bad sectors are the portion of the disk that become unreadable on or unwritable due to some kind of physical damage or media degradation. Okay, so those are known as the bad sectors. And so the OS has certain mechanism in order to identify those bad sectors, and it don't store any kind of data on those bad sectors, it usually skip. And there is some kind of bad sector management algorithms are there. So basically some kind of backup sectors are already stored in order to replace the bad sectors. So there can be many algorithms are there in order to manage these bad sectors. Okay, so basically these are only the bad sectors, and these bad sectors may develop at a certain period of time. And let's say after a certain period, if the number of bad sectors increases so much, then the hard disks become unusable. But if there is a small number of bad sectors, let's say around 5% sectors are bad, it is still usable. So the technique for bad sector management, so you can see that there are many techniques are basically there in order to, like sector forwarding and sector slipping. So if you study this kind of techniques for bad sector management, so this first is your sector forwarding, that is also known as the replacement or mapping. Okay, so when the disk controller redirects access to a bad sector or a spare sector or somewhere on the disks. Okay, so let's say this sector 7, okay, so let's say this sector 7 has become bad sector. Okay, so let's say we have some sparse sectors that is not used, so means those sectors are typically kept. So when these hard disks are manufactured in the factories, so some sectors are intentionally kept for this kind of sparse sector. That means if some sectors become unusable after certain point of time, we can use those sectors. So let's say this 7th sector has become unusable by some kind of physical damage, so then we will use one sparse sector and will make this a 7th sector. Okay, so now from now onwards the 7th sector is not this one but this one. Okay, and one more technique is that use sector slipping. So actually this is a more expensive operation. So what we do in sector slipping, so basically slide all the sectors. Okay, so that means, so this become unusable, this was 7th, right? So now onwards we will say this 7th, so the 8th sector will become 7th sector, the 9th sector will become 8th sector. So in this way you just slipped the entire sector by 1. Okay, so in this way okay, so you just slipped the entire sector by 1 instead of means redirecting this 7 to this sector. You just slipped the entire sector such that the 7 comes just after 6 and just before 8. In order to maintain that, you do this kind of sector slipping. So this is one of the techniques, some techniques to manage the bad sectors. Okay, so I think this is all about the hard disks, or the physical, means all about the HDD or the hard disks or the secondary storage that was used in the older computer system. Okay, and now the next part will be your SSDs. That is, nowadays we don't use, means why we don't use this, because since it is a electromagnetic device, so in order to store a particular sector or a particular track, we need a seek time and a rotational latency in order to access the data. Okay, so some time is definitely spent in the seek time and the rotational latency, and I hope you all remember what is seek time and the rotational latency. I told previously only, that is the time taken by the retread head to reach at a particular track. That time is known as seek time, and the time taken, means the time taken by the rotation to reach a sector under the return right head, that rotation time, that the rotational latency. So those two overheads are there in case of hard disks. So that's why the hard disks are typically slow nowadays. Actually it was very slow. So let's say if you have seen a Windows laptop, and means a Windows laptop with a hard disk and a Windows laptop with a SSD, you could see that the time it takes to boot. Okay, so that clearly say that how much hard disk is slow and how much the SSDs are fast. So in the upcoming lessons we will be seeing SSD. So in this part I will just give a brief overview of SSD, and in detailed study we will do later. Okay, so yeah, so what is as I was talking about the hard disk. So hard disk is basically a non-volatile memory. So there are two kind of memory, that is a volatile memory and a non-volatile memory. So means what is the difference? So your RAM is a volatile memory, so that means if the power is off, then all data get lost. So until and unless the power is there, you have the data. If the power is lost, then you lose the data. So that is known as your volatile. And in non-volatile, that is without the electricity also, you can still retain the data. So your hard disk is a non-volatile memory devices. Okay, so since hard disk is slow, so we have used some kind of flash based storage that is without any moving part. So your modern days, your laptops and PCs are using SSD. So in SSD there is not hard disk. Okay, so in SSD also it is a non-volatile storage, but it is very fast. Why it is fast? Because it doesn't have any kind of movable part. Okay, so in hard disk you could see that something is rotating, means you can hear some kind of sound in the older system, but nowadays because of SSD you don't get that sound because nothing is moving inside your system. Okay, so I think you can see that these solid state drives are an example of flash drive. So this SSD means that cheap based secondary storage, or this cheap based storage are known as flash drive, like your pen drive, USB drives, okay, your DRAM style chips, or the onboard storage in your smartphone or laptop. So all those come under this flash based storage, that is without any kind of moving parts. Okay, so your mobile, the SD card that has been used, that is also your non-volatile and also very fast as compared to your hard disk. So in modern day, almost everywhere the SSD are been used, and maybe after few days the hard disks will get means extinct or eliminated. Okay, and yeah, so but still, since hard disk is slow but the SSD is fast, but still many people nowadays still also use the flash based device. Okay, means still use hard disks. Why? Because there are definitely some limitations. So so if I talk about the advantage, okay, that the pros and cons of the flash based system, so I think this will not be non-volatile, this would be flash based storage. Okay, so since your hard disk is also non-volatile storage, okay, so I think this should be not non-volatile, this would be your flash based storage. So advantage of flash based storage are no seek time, no rotational latency, since there is no moving parts, that is more reliable, lower power consumption. Obviously in hard disks you need more power, you need the power to rotate the disk, you need the power to move the read and write head. Okay, so there are much more overheads are there. So low power consumption in the SSDs or the chip based system, and the increasing capacity and the falling prices, and these are most common in laptops for speed and portability. Okay, yeah. So now coming to the limitation, obviously these are expensive than hard disks, because and that's the reason some people still use hard disks nowadays, and it is of lower capacity. Okay, so the hard disks, so means you can make SSDs of 1 TB also, but still if you see the laptops are typically, let's say in this, so let's say you can see that if I buy a laptop with hard disks, it will come of 1 TB, and if you buy a laptop with SSD, it might come about 512 GB or even less than that. Okay, so that means it comes the lower capacity, but still it is not like that SSD can be of 1 TB or petabyte size, it can be. Okay, but it will become highly expensive. And there is one more drawback, that is your endurance. What is endurance? That means, let's say in SSDs the data are stored in the form of charges, like some kind of transistors are there. Okay, and in the transistor you can do a certain number of write and read, means erase and write, means some kind of limit is there, and after that limit that cell become unusable, you cannot use to store that, you cannot use to store data, and such kind of things is not present in case of hard disks. And in hard disks, unless there is a kind of physical damage, that particular sector is not means it's not damaged. But in SSD it comes with the endurance, that means it comes with a certain kind of lifespan. Okay, so if you, so it to wear out after, let's say you erased many times, you have written many times, so after a certain period of time that becomes unusable. So this is about basically the NAND based flash drive, that is your SSD, and I'll be taking one separate lesson for this SSD, not in this lecture. Okay, so these are part of SSD, and we'll talk about this in the later video. So thank you so much for watching. So this is the first time I tried teaching, so I don't know that am I means a good explainer or a bad explainer, I don't know. I will like to hear from you in your comment section that whether you have understood hard disks or not. So let's say if you have a friend who don't know about hard disks, can you teach him hard disks? Can you make him understand how hard disks work? Can you make him understand that how the database are stored on the sectors and tracks and all those things. If you are able to understand to your friend, that means you understood the concept. So just tell me in comments that whether you understood or not. Okay, and your valuable feedback that in which part I need to improve, and what all teaching style I need to change, since it's the first time, so I don't have any kind of experience in teaching. Okay, so I will love to get your feedback in the comment section. And yeah, thanks for watching. So this is Drax finally signing off. Thank you so much.